Hi, Bilal.
Hi, what's up?
Nothing. We're back again on Read, talking about a few things that are burning questions for us and for most parents, I would say.
Yeah.
Grades, evaluation, exams.
Oh,
You have lots
the
to say.
yes, the most dreadful four-letter word in the child's vocabulary, exams. And it's funny we talk about them because honestly speaking, right now I'm in the midst of teaching a lot of kids or how to crack the exams for their October, November. And I think it's a good conversation to have because I think parents who have children sitting for these exams right now, either it be O levels in November or AS level in November for Cambridge, should understand the anxiety the childs are going through. I'm sure they do. But what has become is that I think we need to take a step back to realize that exams aren't education. And honestly, for the last year and a half, that's all it seems to me. It's all been, especially COVID, post COVID also, it just seems everybody just wants to get an exam done, get good grades, and move on. Nobody is really interested in learning. And I think this whole online learning actually took down much of the fluff around it. It's really, nobody's denying it anymore. It's all about exams because every school's calendar has changed to match the exams. In fact, the studies that were supposed to happen for this second year post COVID have been paused so that they could restudy everything that they studied last year so they could sit for the exam again. So the content that we need to study for the academic content for the next year, most places tried a bit, had to put on hold because no kid is interested. It's not like the schools are not interested. The kids are not even studying. They're still only really focused about the exam they're going to give for something they studied the whole of last year. They still want to study again. So, and I started getting frustrated more and more about this idea. Okay, why are we so preoccupied with this exam? It's not like that's the only form of learning. That is no learning actually. What we become is, I mean, there was a time maybe you could say the goal of education and these exams were similar, but the goal of examination and these of education and examinations is really different. The examination just tells either the employer or a university, hey, this is the lot we have, pick your best from this. Literally, that's what it is. It's like you might go to an animal herd, and I mean, when you're selling cattle, and then you grade cattle and you buy them at the lower and higher price. That's literally what grades are. They are basically a cattle ranch for the universities. Pick your grades. So, because of that, every parent is really only focused about that because most parents are concerned about whether their kid goes to university. And I think one of the things that'll happen very soon is going to happen very soon is when higher education is no longer required for the workforce. A big change will happen because now big companies are not even going to look for grades. They're going to have their own assessments. They have already made better assessments. The top places like even Unilever, we take Unilever, top law firms, top tech firms have their own criteria for assessing, which are very different from how a university or a school assesses. So what education really was for is not what the exam is. So exam tests you on what you know. So the areas of the exam test you on is knowledge and skill. That's it. And also how fast can you regurgitate that knowledge and skill in a specific amount of time. So it's a test for nerves, for writing skill, for memory. And all those things are not used anywhere in the real life. Outside of an exam, and you and I work in the real world, how many times have you had to write more than 2 pages a day? But these kids, we ask these kids to write 16 pages, 20 pages in 3 hours. And the funny thing is, and it's not that they don't realize it, these examiners even put two exams in a day. So basically, the kid who has a physical stamina to sit for 2 3-hour exams or 2 2-hour exams back to back, write for them, is the kid going to do well? That's no sign for how you study. That's no sign for how you judge the child's intelligence. So what the exams are doing is they're testing for literally 3 things: knowledge acquisition and skills, and how fast you can solve the paper. None of which, by the way, is tested on the real world. In the real world, you give a child a problem or a person a problem. You don't say, I need it done in 1 hour. You don't time him to the minute. You know, sometimes they'll take slower. Some people have higher skills in some areas. They'll take longer and some will take less. But then they have the added time of being flexible on the weekends and adding more time. So there's even time flexibility at work. You can also Google things at work. You can also look up things at work. That doesn't happen in the exam. So all the things that we want kids to actually have as list skills, soft skills, hard skills, whatever, And we're not teaching them at school. We're teaching them how to crack an exam. And I have been doing that for 20 years. And I'm telling you, I've become very good at it. And my colleagues also become really good at it. When you know exactly what they're going to ask, we tell the kid, this is the exact words you write to get the grade. A star, you know. And what's scarier is that more and more parents just want that also. And now being a parent, I was like, no, I don't want that for my child. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, I want a different hat now the last 5 years more than before, which is the parent's hat. And I think the schools will keep doing what they want to do because that's what the kid and the parent has been asking for. Grades, grades, grades. Unless the schools are asked to change and the parents demand that there is much more than just grades that our child learns and there's evidence of that, only then can the change happen.
So, as a working person, I would also say that we're moving towards, especially after COVID, we're moving towards a more result-oriented and a goal-oriented kind of assessment system at the workplace, right? If I give a colleague 6 tasks to do, it is more about getting those 6 tasks done within a certain time frame. But it's not about making sure that every hour of the day I'm in control of that time. That's not where the world is going because of remote work, right? So what you want to do is you want to replicate that in schools because you don't want to have people just filling in that time of the school day. You want them to get somewhere. So from one skill or concept to the next, that mastery based approach, I would say.
Yeah. So I think you're picking up a good point here. I think that's what happens in the workforce also. We teach, when we get newer staff, we train them to certain skills. We don't train them to get a grade. You're never going to grade an employee A, B, and C. Hey, learn how to, for example, light this room. You didn't do it well, get a C. No, you'll tell him what exactly they did wrong and then ask them to do it again. And then they do it again, they probably will do it a little better and then they can relearn. And that's what mastery-based learning is. The funny thing is, everywhere else, we want mastery-based learning. If you ever go to a carpenter, you're not going to say, okay, you know what, I'll pay you the grade of what you make. You want it either the best of what you want or nothing. You go to a surgeon, you go to a doctor, you go to an engineer. You want them to be mastery of what they're performing. But in school, we don't do that. And we don't teach for that. So we teach, and this is the most funniest part because I realize when you accumulate all those things that have been dropped, by the time the kid gets to a certain age group or exam level, obviously he's demotivated and he's given up because he doesn't know where to catch up. I mean, imagine a math class. Simple. Let's just take a simple math class. And you're going to do fractions. Let's say, a certain age group, you're going to do fractions. Honestly speaking, every child is going to learn fractions at a different rate. No, they don't come with the same ability. They're not going to learn the same ability. So they're going to have learned fractions and what you want to do, and this is the real world. I think fractions is probably the most used concept of math outside of addition subtraction in everyday life. That's idea, probability, everything. So you want your child to master it. You want every human being in Pakistan or in the world should master the idea of fractions. I don't care if they don't know trigonometry. I don't care if they don't know calculus. They should master fractions. So what happens is you teach fractions for 2, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. You teach it enough, you're thinking everybody gets it. But the kids who got in the first month are really bored by now. They already tuned out, they want to do other things. And now they don't like you because you've stored their time. The kids who have been struggling really badly, they finally maybe get to a place where they're struggling at times, but they can get through. What you do, you give a test, you get A's, B's, and C's, and then you say, okay, let's move on to the next chapter. So the kid who didn't do well in fractions, by the time he goes to decimals, he goes to probability, permutation, all the higher level skills that come in math, you never mastered his basics in fraction. He is going to be scared of fractions, decimal places, standard form, permutation, combination. Everything after that. So now, and it doesn't happen with just one. I just give you an example of one base chapter that leads to so much. So mastery learning has that problem that we don't teach for mastery. And if a kid has the same problem with a few other areas in math, then that's the kid I get in A levels or O levels that says, you know what, math isn't for me. It's not my thing.
Absolutely.
And so and the thing with that is that you don't, when you build a house, when you do anything, you want mastery at every level. Even the most uneducated people, you want mastery of the skill for before you go to the next. You build a house, you build a door, you build a table. You want to get at least the angles right. No, okay. And if they don't do it right the first time, what do? You dismantle and you say, make it again. So the most basic skills require us to have mastery, but apparently education doesn't. So that's a big area that we are falling down behind on because we don't teach for mastery.
And what you're saying is that by getting an A in an O-level subject doesn't mean that you are a master of that subject, right?
Yeah, because you don't know what chapters you're. Let's make it even more interesting because A might cover most chapters, but a B, you don't know which chapters he is good at. I mean, is he mediocre in every chapter, or is he good in some and not good in the others? We don't know.
Or maybe there's one chapter, right,
Yeah.
that he just didn't get.
Doesn't get, and then the tumble down effect. So that's the problem. And then we treat everybody in the classroom the same way, and that can't happen. And that's what happens in a classroom, literally. But we never do that with our children at home, nor with any employee in the office. They're not all widget makers. But in the classroom, that's exactly what it means to feel. Hey, I'm going to teach you the same way. Let's see if you can all learn the same way. And I'm hoping you all learned it because now I'm going ahead. So this going ahead leaves so many behind. And we never know.
What
Because
is high stakes testing though, Bilal? What is high stakes testing?
the testing that gets you places? Like the inter exam, the metric exam, the O levels, the A levels, the testing that has high stakes attached to it. SAT exams, O levels, A levels, they're high stakes. So the kid will do, he would, so because of this, they will do whatever it takes, hook or by crook, to get a high grade in the high stakes exam because their future depends on it. Their future admissions, their future whatever else that they might be trying to attain is so linked to their success at O levels and A levels. That's all you ask for. Because most kids, when they come to A levels, this is the funny thing. Most kids, when they come to A levels to us, are really what? A collection of grades. What are you? 3 A's and a B? Okay, 5 A's and a 2 B's? Great. 7 A stars? Brilliant. That's literally, that's how we judge them. Not by their interest, not by what they're best at, what they like doing, but no, the grades. And this is, and why is that? Because that's the quickest way to label something. It's like racial profiling. The quickest way to profile somebody is by color. In kids, it's by grade, so it's grade profiling. Hey, smart kids, you go here. Weak kids, you go there. What is weak kids? I'm not bothered with you. Take more time. Not to know why they're lagging behind, but to... So, and high stakes exams really put a lot of pressure on everybody. It's just one exam on like one day of the whole year and everything is around that. So you're not assessing the kid for hard work or improvement or self-worth or confidence or collaboration. Because I think exams is the only place in the real world where collaboration is a negative. Everywhere else, collaboration is what you need. At workplace, we're doing this right now. There's 5 people collaborating right this moment to make this happen. It's not a competition. Nobody's saying, okay, my camera angle is better than yours, so I get more points. None of that. There are only 2 places actually, education and sport. And we love sport, and there has to be that in sport. It's a different thing. There has to be competition. And even in sport, most sports, there is some collaboration. There's never a single person. So, but here, everybody's single. You know, like nobody, and I've seen this with my own eyes, and I'm sure this happens still this day. There were people I knew in my school. They would not help somebody else because if there's somebody else, they might get better grades than them. So they need to be better. So this is what we're teaching the kids. So what we're teaching the kids is holding other people back. And that's the problem with, again, competition and grades and all of that stuff.
Bilal, what's the relationship between MCQs and learning?
Sorry, just laughing. Well, MCQs are a great tool for us because for teachers, it's a lazy way out. It's the one exam that you can make so easy. Imagine you're teaching a lecture out of 80 kids. I mean, I took psychology in the US, first semester, intro to psychology. And you'd think psychology is a nice, meaty social science, you know. You've got to write paragraphs and essays and explain your point of view. What's the final exam? 60 MCQs, like literally. Why? Because they were easy for the professor to test. Now, when you give an MCQ, every kid knows one of the 4 is the right answer. And MCQs have become, you test for SAT with MCQs, at least your major subjects in A-levels, that economics, accounting, physics, chemistry, bio, are all tested with MCQs. Factual knowledge, but still MCQs. So there's already a 1 in 4 chance you're going to get right. There's not much variation in that. And MCQs have been proven not to be a great measure of even acquiring knowledge. They were introduced by this fellow, I don't remember the name, but in World War I, to test the intellectual ability of privates they were getting off the streets in the US.
Really?
So how to rank them in. And the army let go of this test after the war because they found it to be completely baseless, useless test. But then it was sold to education institutes. It was sold to the college board to make SAT and then everybody else. So that's where the MCQs come from. It's just an easy way for us to market. And actually why the kids like it also because they get an answer right away. They're wrong. Oh, That's why. So I'm not saying it's not a good way to revise, but it's no way the right way to assess someone's intellectual ability. So, and honestly, most of the time, the assessments we have right now are based in how we could correct them. Now, in the last 50 years, assessments haven't changed really. You still have a paper, you have to write in words, explain what's going on. There's no other way that they're assessing this. Even though we know now that if I'm asking somebody to prove to me if they learned lighting for a camera, let's say, we'll ask them to do what? Show it to us and show us the final product. Not take a piece of paper, write it all down how you do it. And we can do this now, and then parents know that. Their kids know that. Actually, the people who are debunking this myth the most is kids, because they've grown up with things that they know they can do. It's only us who are holding on to the old guard of this is the only way to go through.
So actually, parents complaining about disobedience in kids when it comes to exam testing or preparation or studying for an exam, it's actually an alarm. It's a sign of help that they're actually calling out for help, because what they're actually resisting is perfectly natural.
Yeah, I think when you talk about education, yes. I think if you ask most kids, they left school till about 2nd, 3rd grade probably. It's then when you start giving them tests and exams. Till that time, they were learning for learning. Suddenly, the learning became, no, how well you do on a test. Suddenly, it all became how well you do on a test, not about how to learn. So I mean, we have to test. I get it. Yet we're not there. Even though I'm sure we have solutions out there. I know there are already. But I think maybe it's not low cost enough. But the point is that we have forgotten what we're doing. Schooling is for education. The testing is just a sideshow. You got to test because there's no other way. It's not right now, the testing and everything around it, the education for testing, cracking the test, teaching for the test. That's all we do. So, and we don't care what's good for the learning. Like the day Cambridge removed requirement for labs for sciences, let's say. Yeah, they did that for O levels and IGCSE. They gave us an alternate. Hey, you can do a written lab paper. I don't think any school chose to do lab after that. Why? Because it was harder for kids to score grades in labs, but easier to score grades in written exam for lab. So we all moved to that because it was easier to get a grade. I told my kids, yes, ATP is called ATP, alternative to practical. And what happened was, because it was easier to get grades on, we didn't have. Then after the first few years, some good schools took still kids to the lab and gave a written paper. So okay, you're teaching them something, they're having fun, and then they have to give an exam. Now, most schools hardly take their kids to the lab. They have to have a lab for Cambridge's requirement, but I know the frequency and how they take the lab. Maybe 5 times a year. If a science subject, the most you learn from is by doing, especially physics and chemistry. You don't have to cut a human being. I mean, you can literally do experiments in physics without costing a single rupee. You're not taken to the lab. And so learning is gone, but exam-centric focus is there. So what needs to happen is, I think the younger generation parents are starting to realize it, because they themselves, especially the ones that are working for newer age companies, they see what the world is needing, and nobody has ever asked them about their grades. In fact, nowadays most people don't even care which college you went to. Honestly speaking, there was a big name-dropping idea when I was in college. Hey, you go to Stanford, Cornell, Yale, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't see it as much. It was a ticket to getting into a job because there was no other way to be heard. Now, it is so public that anybody can be heard on LinkedIn. Like if you are worthy of something, you can showcase your work on. LinkedIn doesn't have exams. You can showcase your work, what you've been worth, what you can speak about, what you mean. And somebody has to just need the time to read that, and they can get ahead. And I think we should not think about today. Parents need to predict the future for the child 10 years from today. Because if you're going to base everything on what the market looks like today, you're already lost. I was in the last 1 week, I'm sure you've seen this. The photograph doing rounds about the Nokia CEO crying on the desk because Nokia had to sell to Microsoft. Why? I remember when I was growing up, it was the biggest company in the world. You had a Nokia. It was like having an Apple. You had a Nokia. They run the network. Till Huawei came along, Nokia had all the network also in the world. The point is that they didn't innovate enough. They were living in today, not in 10 years down the road. Same with education is going to happen. I mean, the best teachers right now sit on Instagram and YouTube, and they're not even teachers, they're not even qualified. And kids want teachers to give them the space to learn, and we're not having that. So mastery learning, not teaching for the test, a lot of other things need to happen.
So Bilal, a lot of this is is making a lot of sense, but to some people they would say this is naive of us, right? To imagine that tests are just not something to regard, or you can move them aside and you should only be focused on learning. What is your take on that?
I think, first of all, a lot of radical ideas seem naive first because it's not possible, people would say. The majority of people reject radical changes. So obviously the first idea is like, okay, this is too naive. I mean, the real world admits, needs my kid to go to college. And I understand that. But what you need to be more aware of is that even colleges now are now becoming more and more aware of what other characteristics they need in their children, also in their students, and it's triggered by places that are hiring these guys. Google being a big proponent of best practices of skills along with characteristics and the kind of people they need.
And even learning, right? Google is big on learning.
Big on learning. I mean, they just started, I think, a Google Garage, online garage.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called.
Lifelong learning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we're trying to, what we think is learning is going to be squeezed in the next 5 years, packaged it and then shipped off to college, and that's it, and then go to work. So and so I understand that the people have to go to college, and I'm saying go, but understand that grades for parents, this is for the parents, because there are solutions that can happen at institution-wide, country-wide, even school-wide. But for parents who are thinking about this, first of all, they themselves have to show to the children that exams are not the only thing, not the high-stakes exams. They have to build their repertoire of characteristics around it. Like, you have to start documenting your child's responsibilities. How are they responsible? Can they work well with others? Are they confident? Can they collaborate with people? Can they even engage in a barter? Can they, what would you call it, negotiate? All those things parents can now document very easily. I think that's something that we have to start doing, because realizing that there will be a time where it will be a portfolio-based approach to a child's, would you start a grade or what is worth. And so we can add a lot of those things now and then diversify. I know it's expensive. I know doing some things takes money and time and resources, but what doesn't take any time, money and resources is just talking to your child. Look, it's just an exam. It's just an exam. It doesn't define you. That conversation most people don't have with their children, because they're afraid that if you do that, the child becomes less hardworking. And I understand there is a place for hard work, and sometimes you have to do things which are not worthy of your time or not needed, but to prove, because the exams are at least that. Like, the only good thing I find from exams is, like, if nothing else, they prove for some, not for all, that they can actually put in hard work to get somewhere. Obviously, if you're really smart, you don't need to put the hard work in. But if you're struggling and if you figure out the right kind of hard work to put in, you will get through.
There's a sense of achievement, right?
Yes, there is. For that child, the grade is. But I think what we've done is we have limited the measure of achievement to these grades, very much so. They were always there. They were always there in our time too. But I don't remember people dying this much for grades or cracking the exams. And because what's happened is every minute of the time is spent on cracking the exams now. So if you could spend, let's say, 4 hours a day of your school day, the whole day, in studying for exam-based subjects, and you had 4 hours to do other things, and that might get you maybe 5 A's, and that's okay. But what's happening now is that we're spending double the time. It's not increasing the grades by twice, maybe another 10%. So that's not a good trade-off.
And except it's taking a bigger toll on the kid, and so whatever time they get, they recover in that time, right? Yeah. So they spend it
detoxing.
Yeah, so they don't do other learning or anything.
Or even entertainment that requires some energy, because they are mentally tired. They just want a TV show to just make them stop thinking.
And that's no life, right?
Yeah. I remember time at time, you could listen to music and just enjoy the music. Now, even that requires energy, because you have to think about the music where it takes you. So what you do is, you find it easier. Let me just put on a Netflix show, because I have thought so much about this stupid chemistry exam that I have nothing else left in me. And so that's what happens. So these kids are always going to talk about exam. And that causes, I'm seeing these kids right now, and they're giving exam next month, and all they can think about is exams, which is not helping their case. It's not that it's making them learn better or more or be better students. So, and it's creating this unnatural anxiety in everybody in class. And that's something that I'm so afraid of for my own child coming up in this system, in this ONA level high competitive system. That's not what learning is. I want her to learn for the sake of enjoying that aspect of learning. We do that ourselves these days. I mean, this is the best time to learn because for us, there's no exams. We learn for the sake of learning, and that's what I want my kid to do also. And that's what employees also want. They don't want only when there's a danda that you learn. You want a workforce who's always wanted to learn on their own and balancing life. Yeah.
What is your thought on separating learning and testing, like exam prep? Can you separate them and have a good life?
You could because if because you see the thing of that is with the examination is till you find out perfect alternatives, and you're just gonna take time over years to add some. You replace some of the exams. You replace the number of exams you need to give. You replace some of the subjects you want to give, and you can then have a simultaneously. You can live a second life, like sort of a schizophrenia, but you can know, okay, this is my fun learning, and this is my exam learning. It's difficult because the kid has to put on two different hats and keep switching on the hats and on and off. So it's not perfect. No, it's not perfect. It is better if you can figure out ways that are not the anxiety of these tests completely stop. But obviously, it can happen in one day. It takes years of effort. But what can happen is that you can say, okay, you know what? Treat this like work. So the next 4 hours, just focus on the exam study. Treat it like work. I know it's tough, but do that. But because the next 4 hours, you can spend a lot on learning for fun, whatever you want to learn. Carpentry, bicycle making, physics of darts, the flight, all of that fun stuff. That's where physics is. I mean, honestly speaking, that's what the fun part is. I ask these kids, how many kids have gone to lab to have chemical reactions for no reason whatsoever, just to throw chemicals around? None of them. And I'm like, I used to love just putting carbonate and acid and just seeing the fizz every time. And because I knew they're right there, I just take a bottle and powder and just do it.
So fun story. All I remember, and I got an A in O-level chemistry, which I never pursued. But the only thing I remember.
I'm glad you didn't, by the way.
Yeah, the only thing I remember is throwing different chemicals into the bonfire we used to have for Halloween and seeing the light and the flames turn into
flame test.
colors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where they come from, by the way. The flames come from certain elements having energy. Yeah. Anyways. All right.
So we will talk
fun.
more next week. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Love talking to you. All right.
You too. Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye.